Hello and welcome to a journey about submitting coins to NGC. If you are new to the channel, I want to thank you for being with me here today. If you are one of my returning subscribers, thank you guys as always for being with me on this journey. I mention all the time that I have been buying and selling precious metals and rare coins for 30 or 40 years. That's true. And one aspect of the hobby of numismatics that has really come to the forefront in the last 30 or 40 years is the advent of the third-party grader. If you are new to the channel, I begin most of my videos with a definition or two that we work back into the content of the video. In this case, that definition that we're going to be talking about today is third-party graders. And if you are new to the channel, I like to begin each of my videos with a simple disclaimer that I'm not a financial advisor or a financial analyst. I'm not trying to offer any kind of financial advice. I'm simply trying to share some of my experience having bought and sold precious metals and rare coins for the last 30 or 40 years. So third-party graders are companies that take coins that have been submitted to them and then they grade them based on the Sheldon scale of 1 to 70. Coins are graded on this scale and have been for the last 50 or 60 years or longer. And the idea is that originally, the idea was that coins could be traded sight unseen, kind of like commodities on the stock market. Well, that didn't really ever come to pass. The difficulty with that is that every coin is different, every coin is unique. It doesn't really matter what the grade is, it's what you feel the quality of the coin is. And that was something that couldn't really be seen at the time on some kind of imaginary exchange. However, grading revolutionized the idea of numismatics in many ways that we had never really considered. And I've got an example of a typical NGC holder here. This is a Morgan dollar. This is an 1880 San Francisco Morgan dollar, a beautiful coin that has been graded on that Sheldon scale of 1 to 70. This is graded MS64. So a coin that's graded 64 is considered uncirculated, and that's a relatively high uncirculated grade. Uncirculated starts at 60 and goes all the way to 70, but you rarely see 70s, and you almost never see coins as old as this Morgan dollar with that kind of a grade on it. But the idea of the grading is especially important when you have coins or coin series that are easy to counterfeit or have been counterfeited a lot. Knowing that you've got a piece that has been certified and sealed in a case like this that we call a slab means that it is easier to sell. And part of what I do, or part of what I've done for many, many years, is to buy coins, and sometimes, occasionally, rarely, I will submit them or have one of my dealers submit them to a third-party grader. In this case, I'm going to be going over some of the coins that I have acquired over the last 2 or 3 years. In fact, I've got 1 or 2 coins here that go back maybe 8 or 10 years that I've kind of been waiting for an opportunity to submit. And I thought it would be interesting if we take a look at these coins before I go through the process of submitting them, and then we can see in a second video, a follow-up video, how those coins did. In other words, were the grades that I was hoping for the grades that I actually received. So this will be an interesting video to shoot. This is a collection of mostly of Asian pieces and specifically Chinese pieces. I am a big fan of Chinese coins, but only certain series, and that has been tainted a lot in the last 5 or 6 years with the proliferation of fakes. There are so many counterfeits of many of these coins that you see here before you that it has become very difficult to collect these. And surprisingly, the place where these coins seem to do the best is in China. China has produced so many fakes of these coins that Chinese coin collectors will often come to America or turn to American venues like the American version of eBay to try to find their own country's coins that have been graded and certified by the third-party graders. So it's an interesting turnabout, an interesting change of events, but it also means that there are 1.5 billion people who are interested in these coins, so they often do very well. The problems can be many-fold. It's not just counterfeits, it's that a lot of these coins are in pretty rough condition, And because of that, I have found that if you are going to sell eventually, it's nice to have coins in the holders of third-party graders because it makes it that much easier for people to buy them and know that they're getting an authentic coin. Before I get too far ahead of myself, the counterfeiters are very clever and very devious, and they do sometimes counterfeit the holders as well. So you can have a counterfeit coin in a counterfeit slab, and that is something that does happen. So word of caution on almost all of these pieces: use extreme diligence if you're going to try to pick these up. I've been doing this for a long time, and it's possible that some of the coins that you see here before you will not be will be counterfeit, and that is precisely why I am sending them to NGC. We're going to get their expert opinion too, and we'll take a look at it. So I wanted to go over some of these pieces with you because I think in a lot of ways they are fascinating. This is kind of a traditional Chinese silver dollar. This is called a Yuan Shikai dollar. And Yuan Shikai was the leader of China in about 1910, 1912. He was one of the last emperors of China. He actually crowned himself king of China in 1916, 1915, just a couple of months before he died. Relatively popular early in his career. He was a military specialist, was relatively well received, and he instituted a lot of reforms in China. This piece in particular, at this period of time, when he was the leader of China, there were over 100 circulating currencies in China, and that made it incredibly difficult to do things like collect taxes. So one of the changes that he implemented was to put in one new type of silver coinage called a yuan, and hopefully that was going to change things in the economy, and it kind of worked. But they made hundreds of millions of these, or tens of millions at least. I think the estimate sometimes can be almost 1 billion of these, and we'll probably never know exactly how many, partly because they were originally released in 1914, and then they were restruck in 1920, and a version was restruck in 1921, and they were actually minted all the way up until 1951 with those dates on them. We've talked about restrikes before in the past. These are really good examples. The Chinese have for centuries really liked silver coinage, so the fact that they were implementing their own national silver coinage is really kind of a neat thing. So I'm submitting 3 of these Yuan Shikai dollars. This is the first one. I think that this is probably going to come back VF details. That's very fine details. And the reason I think it may come back details is because these rims are in rough shape. This has just been chewed on, as you can see it there. A lot of these coins, like I said, come in really, really bad condition. And that sometimes impacts the prices quite a bit, and sometimes not so much. In this case, this is still a relatively good condition coin, and I believe this piece is authentic. So having it in an NGC type holder, even if it comes back with a details grade, meaning that they can't give it a straight numismatic grade, they'll still vouch for its authenticity, and that means that it will at some point have some value to it. If it didn't have those chewed on rims, I would say it's going to be VF or extra fine, somewhere in that 40 to high 40s, 40 to 45, 40 to 48 numeric range out of 70. And it would do quite well, but those rims are really going to hold it back. I have another example here that is not in quite as good condition, but it is not as chewed up as the previous one. So you can see those rims are actually pretty decent. This is just an average circulated piece. There's nothing special about it. This coin, I hope, comes back straight graded. That is, that it doesn't have any problems with condition, and that it's going to be at least a fine. So that's my hope with that. The last one, VF details. This one probably fine as a straight grade. And this is the really interesting one of the bunch. This one I bought probably 8 years ago, and it is actually a 1920, so it's a slightly different coin than the other two that you saw. Those were 1914s. This one has a lot of things going for it. It's got some incredibly sharp detail. If you look at his epaulets, and we'll see how close we can get if the camera can pick that up, those are really nicely carved. His hair is really, really finely detailed. But there is a small scratch across his face. You can see that there in the light. And sometimes the third-party graders will call it a details grade, and they'll indicate that it has been scratched. Unfortunately, a lot of old coins were held in those paper 2x2 holders, and those are stapled together, and a lot of coins suffer from staple scratches. That's a very good possibility what that is. Sometimes they'll let it go. Coins that are difficult to grade, coins that have really broad surfaces on them, sometimes they don't care quite as much about. This coin is a tricky one, so I really don't know what to expect with this one. I'm going to call this one maybe AU55, again on that Sheldon scale. That's about uncirculated 55. My hope is that it will come back straight graded, that it won't just be graded AU55 details or AU details, that it will actually come back a straight grade AU55. I think it's a big gamble, the biggest gamble of this entire group, but since I'm sending off all these other Chinese coins, I might as well include it, right? So those are the yuan shikai dollars. Again, tons of fakes, so many fakes out there. There are fascinating varieties to those dollars. And like I said, they made hundreds of millions of them, but they are faked so much and so heavily that if you don't have experience in this series, take my word for it. Unless you've got something that's in a holder like one of these, a quality holder. There are lots of third-party graders that aren't thought of quite as well as NGC. The other one, PCGS. If you don't have one of those coins in a PCGS or NGC holder, tread carefully. Really thin ice there. This is a dangerous game to play if you don't know what you're looking for. Incidentally, these are silver, 26.83 grams of 89% pure silver, so their actual silver weight is right at 0.75 of a troy ounce. Compare that with the United States silver dollar that is 0.77345 or 34 of a troy ounce. So they are quite close in size and weight. The next group is a group of what we call junk dollars. These are interesting pieces. These were also restrikes. These were made in 1933 and 1934 by the United States Mint. These were actually struck in Denver, San Francisco, and Philadelphia for China. Again, America had in many ways backed the nationalists that were fighting against the communists in this period of time. And one of the ways that we helped them was to ship them tons and tons and tons of silver coins so that they can pay their soldiers who really wanted to see their salaries in silver coins. So these junk dollars, some of them can be quite scarce. There are varieties of these that bring tens of thousands of dollars. Unfortunately, these are not those. So this is an earlier one. This is a 1933, and the 1933 is a much more scarce date, but again, we've got really bad rim issues on this. This coin just looks like it has been driven over in a parking lot. So while it is a much more scarce date, the condition's going to hold it back. I'm thinking probably VF details on that one. And similar to the yuan shikai dollars, I also have one that's a little bit nicer, but this unfortunately is a 1934, so this is a much less scarce date. And this one, XF details, maybe somewhere in the high 40s, maybe somewhere in the low 50s. Let's call this one an AU50. Hopefully it will straight grade. It looks like it might have been cleaned at some time in the past, but we're going to cross our fingers, and for that one, we're going to hope for an AU50 or better. The star of this group is probably this one. So unfortunately, this is also the much more common date, but this piece is a stunner in hand. It has got so much cartwheel luster. It is such a beautiful piece. My hope, and you don't see these usually in this kind of condition, a lot of them are chewed up, a lot of them have been dipped and cleaned. They just don't usually come this nice. So this was exciting to pick up. The star of this group, I'm hoping that it straight grades, and I'm hoping that it gets at least a 62 grade. So on that one, MS 62 is my hope. If that's the case, then this entire process of shipping all of these off and paying the hundreds of dollars to have them certified will be worth it. It's a bit of a gamble, but it's something I kind of want to do, not only to help their eventual saleability, but to protect the coins and prove their authenticity. Two others that are from this same period of time in this same area. This is an unusual piece called a memento dollar. And this was originally struck in 1912 to commemorate the birth of the Chinese nation. But again, China found itself in desperate need of silver coins, so they restruck these in 1927, and they were restruck several times even later than that, all the way up into 1949, that same period of time. So the originals of these can be quite valuable. Again, so many fakes out there of this coin in particular. All of these have been heavily counterfeited. I wouldn't be surprised to know that they have more counterfeits out there than actual real coins at this point. And again, China, the Chinese collectors, are finding themselves having to come to America to buy these pieces or buy them on American venues when they've been certified, just to know that they're getting an authentic coin. Unfortunately, not a particularly valuable coin. These can be found in really, really high grade, kind of as a specialty coin. These weren't spent maybe as much as some of the other pieces that we've already looked at up here. So these might have been set aside in really nice condition and kept that way a little bit longer. So, an interesting coin. I'm hoping that this one comes back as a VF straight grade. Again, I don't think it's been damaged. It doesn't look like it's been cleaned outside of what we call market acceptable. Sometimes a little bit of cleaning is okay if there are lots and lots of pieces that have been cleaned. So that's my hope with that one. VF is a straight grade. And then finally, I've got this interesting little $50. This is a Yunnan province $50 from about the same period of time, but 1915, somewhere in that area. It's got a really fierce looking dragon on it. You can kind of see him here, and some interesting characters. The problem is that, like all of these pieces, there have been lots of fakes made. And this piece I bought originally in a 2x2 that looked like it had been stapled together in the 1960s. But there are so many fakes of these coins, and that 50-cent piece in particular has what looks like a little bit of copper showing under a thin layer of silver, and that shouldn't be there. So I'm hoping that that is just tone on the coin, and I've tested it with a Sigma, but these are kind of an odd purity of silver, so it's really a difficult thing to tell. I've used my calipers for the dimensions, I've used my scale for the weight, and everything is close, very close, but not quite where it probably should be. So part of the reason I'm sending that off is so if I do eventually sell it, it'll come back with a grade and a certified holder. But part of me is sending it off just to see if it's real. So my expectation for this one is that it's probably not real. I'm actually thinking that this is going to come back as a fake. And that'll be a learning experience for me, hopefully be a learning experience for you. You can test things, you can try them out. Ultimately, when you have a third-party grader who specializes in these types of coins, who has seen not just 10 or 15 in their lives, but millions of them, their estimation, their valuation, their grade, and their expertise all comes into play. So this will be an interesting piece. My guess is that it's fake. If it comes back real, wonderful. We probably paid for the cost of having these graded. And then we've got some interesting gold pieces. I had an opportunity about a little bit less than a year ago to buy several pieces of gold to kind of celebrate an event. And I've got them here in front of me. And since I'm sending so many other pieces off, I thought maybe I should go ahead and send these off too. So this is almost a lark just to see how they come back. We're going to start over here. This is an 1890 Mexican gold peso. So it's a very tiny coin. Very small mintage on these, but there is a really tiny collector base. Not that many people collect them. I think the mintage on this one is about 2,000. And if that were an American coin, it would be quite scarce, quite valuable. But it's not. This is just an 1890 Mexican peso. My hope is that that one comes back MS62. We'll see where we land. The next one is even smaller. And I'd never seen one of these before I bought this piece. This is a Guatemalan 4 reale. Look how tiny that coin is. A very small gold coin. This one dates from 1860. At least that's the date that's on it. I'm not sure if these were ever restruck, and for all I know, they carried that same 1860 date for many years. But, it's not worth it to slab this. It's not worth it to put it into a case. And I'll go over a little bit of that before we end this video. But since it was so tiny, I didn't want it just by itself. I figured since I was sending other pieces off, I might as well go ahead and have it slabbed as well. My hope for that one is that it comes back in mint state. So on that scale of 1 to 70, that it's at least a 60. I think that's a reasonable hope for that one. It's really difficult to say. The next one, 1963 gold 10 sols. This is a Peruvian piece, and if you've seen some of my other videos, you may have seen the 100 sol gold piece that I have. Exact same design, it's just much, much larger. So this is 1/10 of that size. It's a very pretty coin. This reverse is proof-like, which means that when it was struck with these dies, it has almost kind of a mirror finish. And the holder that I bought this piece in originally said that this was a proof. I don't think my dealer that I bought this from thought that it was a proof. I think that was just what somebody had labeled it in their own collection. I don't even think they made a proof. So I think that this is probably just a proof-like coin. And honestly, it just looks like the reverse is proof-like. So it's difficult to say how NGC will grade that one. Proof-like is a designation that they use sometimes. In fact, the 100 sols that I have is a proof-like coin, a 64 proof-like. So how will it grade? I'm not sure. I'm hoping that it comes back as an MS63, and I would like to see that proof-like designation. Again, just with the reverse being really shiny proof, I just don't know what they're going to say. So, but I'm saying 63 proof-like is my hope. And then in terms of the gold coins, this is a really interesting piece, and this is a piece that I'd never seen before. I will be doing a video on privately minted gold coins at some point in the future. This is a really unusual piece. This was made in 1961, and these were commissioned by a pretty well-known German artist named Werner Graul, who was a bit of a Renaissance man. He was an artist, he was a writer. He's most famous in the art world for doing one of the posters of the movie Metropolis, the famous German turn-of-the-century movie Metropolis, early science fiction movie. But he also was a huge proponent of gold. And he saw the reduction and disappearance of gold in circulating coinage as a big negative. He thought that America, or people all over the world, were going to suffer from inflation if they couldn't hold gold. You could argue that he was correct. You could argue that he was wrong, but he made some really interesting, beautiful coins. This one is a ducat, and he made multiples of ducats also. I think he made a 5 and a 20 ducat. But a ducat is a traditional kind of European gold coin of a particular weight. In this case, these weigh 3.5 grams of 0.98 gold, so 98% pure. These are really, really scarce. Very few of these exist, and it will be exciting to see how that one comes back. I am hoping that that one comes back as a proof 65. So on the Sheldon scale, specially prepared coins are called proofs. Not on the Sheldon scale, but in numismatics. And they are also graded on that scale of 1 to 70. It's not a circulation strike, it's a special strike made specifically for collectors. Proofs are not a condition, it's a type of manufacturing. So it's my hope that that one is designated a proof, that they recognize that it is a proof coin, and that it comes back as a proof 65. That's my hope. I mentioned a little bit about how this process works. You have to be a member of NGC or PCGS. There are other third-party graders out there that I don't think as highly of, so I don't use them, and I often don't buy coins that are graded by them. You could argue that their grades are every bit as legitimate as NGC or PCGS. My experience is that, for me at least, that's not really true. So I stick to PCGS, I stick to NGC, and I will probably have some pieces from CAC also when it gets up and running. But the process is, if you are a member of these organizations, and it's not very expensive to join, you select the coins that you want to send to them. You can fill out a form online, which is a kind of a standard form. You put in the country that originated these coins, you put in the year that they were made, you can put in the mint mark, the denomination of them, so that NGC has a record of what it is that you are submitting to them. They have different tiers of services. Gold coins usually go in one batch. Foreign coins usually go in one batch. You can do expedited service, and that can go in one batch. So they have different options. But for the most part, when I submit, and I don't submit that often, maybe once a year, probably less than that, I am using their economy service, and the economy service is one of the least expensive ways to do this. Keep in mind that whenever you're having a coin submitted for grading like this, it costs $20 or $30 or $40 depending on that service and what type of coin it is. Very expensive coins cost considerably more sometimes. But I use the economy service because it's the least expensive, and by the time all of these are paid for, I will probably have spent somewhere around $600. But with this number of coin, that brings the prices down to maybe $40 a piece, including shipping there and shipping back. So you have to have pieces that will make it financially viable to spend $30 or $40 a piece on. Pieces like this one from Guatemala, there's no way that's going to be worth that shipping and handling fees, the slabbing fees. But again, I kind of felt like it was such a cute small coin, it would be fun to have it in a slab, and I'd rather have it in a slab than in a plastic 2x2. You bundle all of these pieces up with the invoices that you've created. You ship them usually via insured mail so that you make sure that they get there safe. And then the waiting game begins. And that's where part 2 of this video will pick up. It's going to be, once I ship these off, at least 30 days. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're getting closer to 60 days before we actually get these pieces back. And that will be part 2 of this video series, when I will do an unboxing and I will show you each and every one of these, and we'll see how close I was with the grades that I was hoping to get in this video. Thank you for being with me here tonight. If you have any questions about NGC or PCGS, the style of grading that we're going to be doing, any questions about these coins, leave a message for me down below. I'll try to answer when I can. If you would like to see me do any other 2 or 3-part videos that are similar to this submission series, when we will be taking a break in between this and then watching how the results come back in, leave a message for me down below. I'd love to try to attempt whatever it is that you have in mind. We'll see if there's a video in there. And as always, thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey as you go deeper into the world of coins and physical precious metals.